We do know that many of them sell ad space to powerful nonprofits.
Yep.
I believe that if you track the government spending through these nonprofits, you will find it goes from government to NGO into the hands of liberal pundits.
David Pakman.
Tim Pool absolutely wrecks David Pakman exposing the ridiculous hypocrisy of the leftist media ecosystem. David Pakman, as usual, gets super defensive when confronted with uncomfortable truths, trying to downplay the fact that his side has been benefiting from shadowy funding sources while Tim Pool gets falsely accused. You can practically see the panic setting in as Tim Pool methodically picks apart his nonsense.
All right, I want to go over something that's a little bit different, but I do think is worthy at least of a little bit of discussion. This clip was sent to me from the Timcast show, where Tim Pool and Milo Yiannopoulos, who I guess has resurfaced with new, let's just call it a new look. I don't know that it's appropriate to talk about exactly which elements of his face are new, but it's a new look Milo Yiannopoulos. And the topic came up generally of the Russian influencer money, which Tim Pool received, but Milo didn't know that he received it. Anyway, none of that is important other than to say this led to allegations that shows on the left, like this one, and my name was mentioned here, we might be knowingly or unknowingly getting money that came from USAID, the now canceled program. And I actually didn't know. Over the last 2 weeks, I started getting hate emails from people going, David, your show's going to end now because you're not going to get that USAID money anymore. And I didn't know where this was coming from because, of course, we've never gotten money from USAID or any nonprofit that could be indirectly connected. We know our advertisers. They're just for-profit companies, someone selling a book, someone selling a mattress, right? It has nothing to do with USAID. But regardless, I was thinking to myself, why are people even talking about this show and USAID? Apparently, this is a known conspiracy theory. I believe the idea here is to say we may have gotten some Russian influencer money without knowing it, but David Pakman is getting USAID money without knowing it. Let's listen to what they had to say.
Billions a year.
I have a question for you and for everybody who's listening, or I should say I have a tip, I suppose. We know for a fact that there are many popular liberal podcasts that run nonprofits or have nonprofits buying ad spots.
Now, there are many liberal podcasts that run nonprofits or have nonprofits buying ad spots. Maybe that's true. I would love to know which nonprofits. He hasn't said it here. Now, here Milo gets a little bit sort of like ad hominem where he goes, there are no big left-wing podcasts, not David Pakman.
But he's listening, or I should say I have a tip, I suppose. We know for a fact that there are many popular liberal podcasts that run nonprofits or have nonprofits buying ad spots.
There are any popular liberal podcasts.
Whatever you want to call it.
We're going to find out.
I think look, remember David Pakman after the election.
So Milo says there are no big liberal podcasts. Remember David Pakman after the election. Now, of course, what he's referring to is the fact that for 36 hours after the election, we lost subscribers. And it's funny because it's been months since that. We're at almost 3 million. It's, they keep going with this thing. The left has lost all of its following. If you just looked at the number of subscribers we had on November 6th, and now we're almost at 3 million, you would know that that was like a 36-hour phenomenon. But okay, so anyway, let's continue.
Popular.
So let me, this point I'm making is that who is funding these shows and how are they being propped up? One, obviously YouTube is propping them up, despite the fact they're clearly not popular as we just saw the results of the election.
Okay. Tim's argument is these shows like mine only get views on YouTube despite the unpopularity of our ideas because we lost the election, because YouTube is algorithmically propping them up.
Yeah, so, I mean, Tim Pool is just spitting facts here. David Pakman keeps acting like his audience is organic, but let's be real. YouTube's algorithm absolutely plays favorites. They push left-wing channels while suppressing independent voices like Tim Pool. And let's not forget that losing an election doesn't mean the ideology just vanishes. That's such a lazy, bad faith argument from David Pakman.
Couple things to say on that. Number one, Most people who voted for someone other than Trump. So if the idea is that YouTube audience is directly reflective of the percentage of the American population that approves of what you're saying, more people voted for something other than Trump. So there's no real concern there. I mean, yes, Trump won electorally. I haven't denied that for a moment, but a majority of voters that voted did not vote for Trump. The idea that YouTube is propping us up algorithmically, if anything, it seems to be the opposite. And I actually think that it's in general, YouTube is not propping up news and politics generically, but okay, let's continue.
However, we do know that many of them sell ad space to powerful nonprofits. I believe that if you track the government spending through these nonprofits, you will find it goes from government to NGO into the hands of liberal pundits.
David Pakman.
Now, the word is pundits, not pundits. It's a made-up word, pundit. I dare you, look it up, doesn't exist. It's a pundit. And then Milo says David Pakman. Now, this to me is very clearly, they got caught with their hands in the cookie jar, getting money from Russia.
Oh, here we go. Classic David Pakman trying to flip the script. Dude, Tim Pool is calling out an actual money trail, and David Pakman's response is, well, actually, you guys did it. No evidence, just projection. And I don't know about you guys, but that sounds super desperate to me. Tim Pool, on the other hand, is just laying out the receipts while David Pakman scrambles to play victim.
I'm not alleging Tim knew. I don't know. He says he didn't know. He says he did hardcore due diligence and he didn't know. He insists that what he was offered was market rate. I can tell you as someone, the information is public, right? This is not like a bragging thing. It's just my channel gets more views than Tim's. I can assure you that what he was offered was not market rate. It would be awesome if it was. I would say to Tim, congratulations, because then my market rate would be even higher. But this isn't the market rate. Now, in order to say the other side does it too, they are saying, they get money from USAID. It goes from government, USAID, a nonprofit, and then into the David Pakman show, even maybe through a brand. Now, you don't actually have to make this claim because there are content creators on the left who over the last 10 years were getting money, for example, from state media in Venezuela and from other left-wing authoritarian regimes. So you don't even have to go and say, David Pakman's probably, we're not. And you can find examples of people that were. You don't have to do this. But when I look, for example, at today's advertisers, Ground News, it's just a news analysis website. It has nothing to do with a nonprofit. It has nothing to do with USAID. Naked Wines, it's a company that does wine shipped to your door. It has no connection to nonprofits. It has no connection to USAID. You may like the product. You may not like the product. Congratulations. It just doesn't. What's another advertiser today? MD Hearing. They make hearing aids. They sell hearing aids. It's a for-profit company. There's no connection to a nonprofit. There's no connection to USAID. I would challenge Milo, who says David Pakman. I would challenge him to find a specific example of a company that's advertising with us that is connected to shadowy nonprofits or USAID.
Now, he might not even know, and that's the important thing.
Oh, yeah.
Now they're talking about me. I might not know.
Well,
no. Let me. This is important. You can accuse him of knowing. You can accuse him of intentionally taking money. My point is this.
I would never accuse David Pakman of knowing anything.
Sure. They're very well.
Isn't that funny?
Maybe
that was coming.
There very well may be individuals who their ad person comes to them and says, "This NGO wants to spend $100,000 in ads on your show," and they say,
"Yeah, we've never had an NGO come to us."
That conservative thing of giving too much credit.
No, I'm saying in general, big picture.
No, they know exactly where the money's coming from. Dave Rubin knew where the money was coming from when it was coming from Russia. He used it to buy his children.
So now Milo has stepped in it because he says Dave Rubin knew he was getting Russian money. And of course, Tim Pool got money from the same place. And now Tim Pool's going to get very defensive.
That is 100% false. And you know that ropes me into it. And I can verify it's 100% false.
Yeah, notice how Tim Pool immediately shuts this down. David Pakman and Milo are just throwing out nonsense at this point. Tim Pool isn't letting them weasel their way out of this. He's standing firm, calling out the lies in real time. Meanwhile, David Pakman just sits there acting like he's the victim when in reality, he's the one tossing around baseless accusations.
All right.
Completely untrue.
It is so,
and this is important big picture stuff because
so
USAID is funneling money into NGOs.
It's irresponsible in the extreme to the point of ludicrous negligence to not know where hundreds of thousands of dollars are coming from. To not even ask.
And that's not the story at all. So if you knew what you're talking about, maybe it sounds smarter.
All right. So now they just argue with each other about Tim Pool taking Russian influencer money. It's funny how they were all having a good time dunking on me over made-up claims, but now all of a sudden it gets a little tense. Listen, just give me an example, right? I would be glad to track down the provenance of any ad dollar that's coming in. Of course, we're primarily supported by audience membership, so it's just individual people. So it's like you kind of have to ask yourself, oh, I'm a member. Did that money come through USAID and some shadowy nonprofit or NGO? Of course it didn't. But I think this is them trying to just say, oh, the left is doing the exact same thing, and they're grasping at straws. Of course, it isn't happening.
At the end of the day, Tim Pool completely exposed David Pakman for what he is. A typical leftist media figure who plays dumb when convenient, but throws out wild accusations when he's backed into a corner. Tim Pool's arguments were solid, his receipts were real, and David Pakman just looked shook. This was an absolute W for Tim Pool and a massive L for David Pakman.